Pollinator loss can change all terrestrial areas at least equally as climate change, and it requires much more attention. My name is Stefanie Christmann. I work on pollinator protection. 87% of all flowering plants require insect pollinators. Cross-pollination enables regeneration of plants and climate change adaptation. Some pollinator species can replace others, but this is possible only at limited extent. Broad pollinator loss due to monocultures, chemicals and habitat fragmentation can cause cascades of extinctions, first of plants, later also of animals depending on these plants, and finally of habitats. If too many pollinators are lost in an area, plant pollinator communities can collapse. These 87% of flowering plants provide us with 3/4 of the most important food crops, with cotton and other raw materials, medicinal plants. They contribute to clean water, erosion control, functioning landscapes for agriculture, living and recreation. As 87% of all flowering plants depend on pollinators, pollinators are basic, crucial for all ecosystem services to some extent. Species-poor environments are also more vulnerable to storm, pests and so on. Pollinator loss might cause simultaneous degradation of ecosystem services, causing interlinked poverty spirals. What would happen in case of simultaneous decline of all ecosystem services? Which primary and secondary consequences do we have to expect? And how would we react? Counterproductive or adaptive? Hostile or collaborative? How to gain the common purpose for restoration? Will local people be ready to establish more diversified and healthy fields to protect pollinators? Or will they shift to barley and forage for livestock production, thus increasing food insecurity of the poor, greenhouse gas emissions, soil and air pollution? If farmers would respond to the loss of pollinator-dependent high-value crops by abandoning areas lacking pollinators, it can increase food insecurity, migration and social risks for migrants and challenges in regions of immigration. Partial loss of linen, cotton, textile fibers, energy plants might accelerate the consumption of petrochemical resources, aggravate climate change, and increase non-compostable garbage. Greater runoff of precipitation due to loss of flowering plants with strong root systems can induce villagers in mountainous regions to abandon land or migrate, or induce regional governments to invest in terracing and water reservoirs to combat mud flows. How to fund adaptation? For instance, water reservoirs below eroded slopes or dams along the seashore after mangroves are lost. And what are the consequences of counterproductive human responses, socially and environmentally? We don't know. When pollinator loss-induced interlinked poverty risks appear from various ends in many countries and affect the growing global population, a pollinator loss syndrome might become a main syndrome of global change. The coincidence of multifold deterioration can result in higher tension within society and between countries. If, for example, the global loss of high-value crops surpasses a threshold, it will affect commodity exchange, for instance, of food and cotton, food industries, and global food prices. Counterproductive coping strategies and archetypical human responses, prioritizing the well-being of one's own group or country, can increase. Some governments could go for military actions to secure access to environmentally still functioning areas or to prevent migration of ecological refugees. Pollinator loss is a huge but overlooked risk for global peace. If, however, decision makers get aware of the multifold negative impacts of pollinator loss and we start pollinator protection in time, then we can avoid such negative development. And Pollinator protection is not as costly as climate change mitigation. Particularly if farming with alternative pollinators, briefly FAP, is used. FAP contributes to 5 Sustainable Development Goals: combat poverty, combat hunger, improve health, protect the climate, and sustain life on Earth. Climate change can reduce global population. However, are you sure that we humans can survive without pollinators?